Hello and welcome to the Rogers Brief. I'm Adam Rogers. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you are watching, you'll notice I've got a little bandage here on the go. Had a little minor surgery this morning up in Truro. If you were watching before, you might have seen a little white spot there. Nothing serious, but had it removed this morning. Thanks to Dr. McGuigan for not hacking and slashing me there too bad. So have this on for a few days anyway, and then we'll hopefully be back to normal before too long. So I'll mention that. The other thing I'll mention, of course, this is September 8th, 2022, and the Queen has died today, Queen Elizabeth, age 96. I'm sure that's what everybody will be thinking about, talking about for the next while, certainly all over the internet this afternoon and all day, really. And from a legal perspective, just maybe a point of interest for people, whenever somebody is suing the government, it's always, you don't sue the province of Nova Scotia, it's always Her Majesty the Queen, if you're suing the federal government, Her Majesty the Queen and Right of Canada and Right of Nova Scotia. All of those now, even in I believe ongoing litigation now, would have to switch to His Majesty the King. I see that Charles has not surprised anybody, or maybe has surprised some people by actually becoming king immediately and not foregoing that opportunity to pass it on to Prince William. Anyway, so some sad stuff seemed inevitable as these things are. So mention that up front. Today was, like I say, day 67 of the Mass Casualty Commission proceedings, and today was involved a roundtable discussion on a big topic, which is the policing structure of Nova Scotia, the best future policing structure of Nova Scotia, talking about the existing structure, of course, and that was already discussed back in early part of phase 2. So it was a big topic, and there was a big group of people discussing it. There was 20, in fact. I'll list them out for you just to see, so you know who was involved. There was Chief James Butler from Kentville Police, Harry Critchley, who is on the Halifax Regional Municipality Board of Police, actually an articling clerk at Nova Scotia Legal Aid, so interesting combination there. Haley Crichton from the Department of Justice Nova Scotia, who was on the discussion yesterday. Heidi Marshall from the Jane Paul Centre in Sydney. Dr. Jane McMillan from St. FX, who we've heard from earlier in the commission, former wife of Donald Marshall Jr. and an author herself. Retired Deputy Chief William Moore from the Halifax Regional Municipality. Emma Arnold from the Elizabeth Fry Society of Mainland Nova Scotia. Chief Superintendent Darren Campbell was back for some more commentary. Danielle Desjardins from Nova Scotia RCMP. Christina Fifield from the Avalon Centre. Don Ferris, the Executive Director of Autumn House. Brian Carter from the RCMP Veterans Association. Chief Mark Kane from the Annapolis Royal Police. Chief Dan Kinsella from Halifax Regional Police. Ben Perriman from the British Columbia Civil Liberties Association. Superintendent Dustine Rodier from Nova Scotia RCMP. Rob Stone, who is the Associate Director General of the RCMP Strategic Policing Agreements Division. Mark Tessereau from Public Safety Canada, and Julie Thompson, also from Public Safety Canada. So a lot of people, which meant a lot of timekeeping and moderation from Dr. Emma Cunliffe to try to keep the discussion going and try to include everybody. Very difficult thing to do. Although sometimes she didn't make it easier either. Just on the last question, she said she wanted to give everybody 2 minutes to talk about their advice on the structure of policing in Nova Scotia, which she kept people to, except the setup to the question took about 5 minutes to do. So anyway, there's something I noticed. So yeah, it was lots of people, lots of stage management and moderation to do there. So one of the big things I took from the discussion, and we're talking about the structure of police. So in Nova Scotia, there's the legislation of the Police Act, which gives responsibility for who polices Nova Scotia. We have some municipalities like Halifax, Truro, CBRM, and smaller municipal units as well with their own police forces. We have the RCMP policing much of the rest of the province. 40 municipal units have provincial police service agreements with the RCMP. And then some municipal units have direct contracts with the RCMP. So there's a real smorgasbord patchwork of policing entities in Nova Scotia. So the discussion was about, well, how does that work and should it change and how best should it change? And one of the things I took from it, particularly from the comments of Hayley Crichton from the Department of Justice, Nova Scotia, was that the province doesn't seem to want to take on the responsibility of policing in Nova Scotia. In other words, they don't want to create a provincial police force. This is reading between the lines a little bit, but this is coming from a bureaucrat. This is not coming from Minister Brad Johns. This is coming from Hayley Crichton, who's with the department, but in charge of public safety there. Seemed to be more satisfied with an oversight responsibility or function with the province rather than direct administrative responsibility. Now, the reason I think that in her comments, I noticed that Ms. Crichton was trying to portray municipalities as being the directors or directly responsible, that is, for policing, when actually it is the provincial minister of justice who is ultimately in charge if they choose to use the authority that's provided in the Police Act. Okay, so the Police Act, I'll just go through a few provisions, and it's the Minister of Justice responsibilities right up front. In Section 3, it says the Minister is responsible for the administration of justice in Nova Scotia. Section 4, the Minister is responsible for supervision of the Police Act. Section 5, the duties of the Minister are listed, ensuring adequate and effective levels of policing throughout the province. The Minister may direct a municipal police members to go from one municipality to another if there's a need, and may take over policing in a municipality. So if you go later in the Act, Section 35 says that municipalities are responsible for policing expenses. They're responsible for paying for policing, but there's also a whole section in there about the province establishing, they have the authority to establish a provincial police service, the chief of police, and an entire structure. So in other words, there's no need for any legislative change or update to introduce a provincial police force. So it was interesting that those provisions are in the Act, yet the province is here sort of saying, oh no, we supervise these, we help out with agreements with the RCMP, between the municipalities and the RCMP, but we're here as an oversight function. And then it's like, well, okay, so that means you set police standards. Yeah, well, okay, they're under development, so they haven't done that yet. They use all these words, but without, like, it's a dynamic process. It's all these things. Okay, what it means is it hasn't been done yet. Also was discussed about setting standards with the RCMP. What if the RCMP have a national standard that they use internally and the province has a different standard? Well, Ms. Crichton says the provincial standard is what needs to be met, and the RCMP has agreed to that in their contracts with the municipalities, I guess, but with the province, really. So it's I thought that was sort of an interesting way of looking at things from the province's perspective, and it seems like that might be taken as a sign, or I would take it as a sign, that the province is not eager to jump in and say, yeah, okay, we're going to take this situation over and create or start a process of consultation and creating of a new police force. Okay. I thought that was, okay, so that was one thing. The second thing I wanted to talk about was some discussions about the police reputation. Dr. Scott Wortley, who was present. I guess I didn't list him in the earlier section. Yes, I missed Dr. Wortley. Dr. Scott Wortley from the University of Toronto, did the Wortley report on street checks in Nova Scotia. Now, one of his comments I thought was a key one was talking about the reputation of the police, and how despite sensitivity training, bias training, all these updated training modules, that perceptions of the police have not changed significantly in 25 years. They've gotten no worse or no better for marginalized communities, racialized communities, and then among the white population, their reputation 25 years ago was fairly good, but through, I guess, education and just more incidents, things in the news, that reputation number has also slid significantly. So he says among the things you need to do with the police is have more study done where the police are not in control of the study, either by having police-friendly participants in the study or by having contractual provisions in the study that allows the police to control whether the results are made public. Well, what he's talking about, Dr. Wortley was saying, in some cases, there'll be a study done or report done and the police don't like it, or they think that it's going to be perceived as critical of the police, and so they don't release it. So that needs to change in order for better information to be available to the public. There was also a lot of discussion today about policing in Mi'kmaq communities and the issues of development of tribal police, how that was attempted. Didn't seem to go that well. This was mostly Dr. McMillan and Heidi Marshall speaking about these issues. Now, not perhaps specifically relevant to the Mass Casualty Commission's core mandate, although of course they've expanded what they consider the mandate to entail, but certainly an issue in policing where you would say reform would be needed, and that a new entity without the baggage of the RCMP's past, without other municipal force baggage as well, might assist in that way. So one could envision two sort of a provincial police force, and then also sort of a band police force, a tribal force that would be responsible for policing in the 13 Mi'kmaq communities throughout Nova Scotia. Perhaps that wasn't explored in great depth because there were so many people. How could you explore anything in depth? But that was something that was raised. Now, so that was the second point I wanted to raise about the police reputation, some of the comments therein. The third thing was police oversight. Commissioner Stanton raised a point just before lunchtime that I thought was interesting, which was about how civilian oversight boards, policing is becoming more complicated, and civilian oversight boards may not have the resources, the capacity, to understand what questions they could or should be asking of the police. And so, if you're the oversight board, but, the police come in and tell you they're doing a great job, and and you don't know any better, you don't have any other information, you don't have the time or expertise available to you to know what questions to ask, well, then that oversight function isn't really that effective. That was also, I thought, echoed quite effectively by Harry Critchley from the police board in Halifax. Talked about the just relative budgets, that the police review board currently has a budget of about $14,000. He says that's going up to over $100,000, which is a dramatic shift. But he compared that to say, all right, policing is complicated. What else is complicated? Power rates are. Well, we have the Nova Scotia Utility and Review Board with a budget of $2.7 million. We have the Nova Scotia Human Rights Commission with a budget, he said, of over $2 million as well, if I caught that correctly. So what that means is that the status quo, current situation, is limited civil society engagement, limited civil society oversight of the police. So whatever recommendation emerges from this in terms of a police structure, it looks to me as though, and I think most of the speakers today would agree, that there needs to be stronger oversight provisions with a structure, maybe not similar in size to the UARB, which is a bigger organization, but certainly bigger than it is now, and something rigorous that is, as educated on police standards as the police themselves, as in order to give that effective oversight. So some interesting points from today. A big day in the world because of the death of Queen Elizabeth, and also an important day here in Nova Scotia with some of the discussions that were going on that may affect the future of policing in this province. So that was what I saw today. Thanks to everybody for watching, and thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.